Easter has always been one of those holidays that feels lighter than the rest. It doesn't carry the same pressure as Christmas or Thanksgiving. It's just family, food, and maybe a little too much candy. That year, Easter fell on a Sunday that seemed almost picture perfect. The weather was cool but bright, the kind of morning where the sunlight sneaks through the curtains and you can hear birds outside before you even open your eyes. I remember waking up to the faint smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen, mixed with the sugary scent of chocolate bunnies and marshmallow treats that were already laid out on the counter. My mom had filled little wicker baskets with colorful eggs and ribbons, and the house carried that cheerful hum that comes with a holiday morning. Nothing felt out of place. The family was supposed to come over later for dinner, but the morning was calm and quiet, just the way I liked it. I sat by the window for a while, watching the neighborhood slowly wake up. Kids running around in pastel clothes, adults carrying trays of food from their cars. It felt safe, warm, and ordinary. At that moment, I couldn't imagine anything bad happening. It was just another Easter, and life felt steady. But looking back now, I realized that calm was just the silence before everything changed. The day carried on in its usual rhythm. I helped my mom set the table, unwrapping foil-covered chocolates and arranging them neatly into bowls. Every so often I'd glance out the window at the kids across the street, darting between bushes, their parents laughing as they searched for hidden eggs. It was ordinary in every sense, almost peaceful, but little things started to pull at the edges of that peace. The first time, it was just a sound, a soft thump upstairs, like something heavy being set down. I froze for a second, listening. My mom was still in the kitchen, clattering pans, humming to herself. No one else was supposed to be home. I told myself it was probably the house settling, or maybe something falling from a shelf. Still, the thought stuck with me. A little later, while carrying a basket of napkins into the dining room, I noticed one of the dyed eggs sitting on the windowsill. That was odd. My mom never left them near the sun because they spoiled too quickly. I picked it up, expecting to see the bright pink or blue dye she had used the night before, but this one was pale, unevenly colored, almost gray. For a second I wondered if I had done it myself and forgotten, but it didn't look like any of ours. The uneasiness kept slipping in, little by little. When I went upstairs to grab an extra tablecloth, I swore I heard footsteps on the floorboards behind me, slow and deliberate. I spun around, heart racing, but the hallway was empty. The air felt heavier up there, like the warmth from downstairs couldn't quite reach. I brushed it off, muttering to myself that I was just overthinking. Still, it was the kind of silence that doesn't comfort. It presses against your ears, like it's waiting for you to notice something. By the time I came back down, the smell of coffee that had filled the house earlier seemed different, fainter, almost sour, as if it had been sitting for hours. I asked my mom if she had brewed a new pot, but she just looked at me like she didn't know what I meant. Everything looked the same, but it didn't feel the same anymore. Every room felt slightly off, as though someone had been there just moments before me, leaving behind the smallest traces I couldn't quite explain. And on that normal Easter morning, a question began to stir in the back of my mind. What if we weren't as alone as we thought? It didn't take long for me to realize something was wrong. The strange egg on the windowsill kept nagging at me. I had left it on the counter earlier, but when I came back to the dining room, it was gone. Not moved, not broken, just gone. My stomach dropped. I tried to laugh it off, but my laugh came out shaky. I told myself maybe my mom picked it up. When I asked her though, she frowned, said she hadn't touched it. That was when the unease turned into something sharper. Fear. Then the noise came again. Louder this time. A heavy bang from upstairs. My mom froze, spatula in hand. We locked eyes. Neither of us moved. Then another bang. Not the sound of something falling. It was too deliberate, too heavy, like someone slamming a door on purpose. My heart raced. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a dining chair, and pressed it against the front door. Then I checked the locks. Every window, every latch. My hands shook so badly I could barely turn them. My mom kept asking what I was doing, but I didn't have an answer. The air upstairs groaned again. Slow, dragging footsteps across the ceiling. Whoever, or whatever, was up there. They wanted us to hear them. I thought about running outside, but the thought of opening that door made my skin crawl. What if they were waiting, watching? My breath came in quick bursts. My chest tightened. The house that had felt so safe an hour ago now felt foreign. Wrong. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A figure, just at the top of the staircase. Still, silent, watching. I froze. The figure at the top of the staircase didn't move, didn't breathe. At first, I thought maybe it was just a shadow, but then its head tilted, slow and unnatural, as though it was studying me. Who's there? My voice cracked. My mom whispered my name, terrified, clinging to the edge of the counter. The figure stepped forward. Just one step, but the floorboard screamed under its weight. My chest tightened. Its outline wasn't clear. It looked wrong. Too tall, too thin. Its limbs hanging in strange angles, like it didn't quite belong in this world. Then it spoke. Not words. Not anything human. Just a low, guttural sound, like a growl dragged through broken glass. I stumbled back, gripping the chair in my hands, but my legs felt weak. The smell hit me next. Rotten eggs, sulfur, thick and choking. It flooded the air, burned my throat. The thing descended the stairs, each step deliberate, echoing like a countdown. I wanted to run, but my feet wouldn't obey. My mom finally screamed, snapping me out of it. I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the back door, fumbling with the lock. Behind us, the footsteps quickened, pounding down the stairs. The growl turned into something worse, laughter. Hollow, mocking. The door stuck for a moment, my shaking hands unable to twist the handle. And just as I ripped it open, I risked one last glance back. It was there, at the bottom of the stairs, and in its pale, twisted hands was the missing gray egg. We stumbled out into the backyard, slamming the door behind us. My mom collapsed onto the grass, gasping for air, while I stood frozen, waiting for it to follow. But the door never opened. The house stood there, silent and still, like nothing had ever happened inside. Neighbors carried on across the street, kids laughing, parents clapping as eggs were found in bushes. None of them noticed the way we stood there, pale and shaking. It was like whatever had come into our home was meant only for us. We never went back inside that day. The family arrived hours later to find us sitting outside, trembling, unable to explain why we refused to cross the threshold. When they finally entered, the house was normal. Too normal. No rotten smell. No missing eggs. No footprints on the stairs. Nothing, except one thing. On the dining room table, right in the center of all the bright candies and pastel eggs, sat the gray one, perfectly placed, as though it had been waiting. We threw it out, of course. I tried to forget, but I can't. I see it sometimes, in dreams, or worse, in places it shouldn't be. On my windowsill, in the fridge, once, even in the passenger seat of my car. I don't know what it means. I don't know why I chose Easter. But every year when spring comes around, when baskets and eggs fill the stores again, I feel that same chill crawl up my spine. Because I know one day, I'll see that gray egg again. And next time, I don't think it will just sit and wait. I've never been someone who paid much attention to Easter traditions. No baskets, no egg hunts, no pastel-colored decorations. But that year was different. My girlfriend at the time invited me to her family's cabin for the weekend. They wanted me to be part of their yearly Easter gathering, and I couldn't really say no. The cabin sat at the edge of a pine forest, about 2 hours outside the city. It wasn't remote exactly. You could still see a neighbor's house through the trees, but it felt cut off from the world. The air smelled like damp wood and pine needles, and at night, the silence was thick enough to make you notice your own breathing. When we first arrived, everything seemed warm and welcoming. Her parents greeted us with smiles. Her little cousins darted through the cabin with baskets of candy, and the wood stove gave the place a cozy glow. Dinner was planned for the next night, and I could already smell ham cooking in the oven. For a while, I let myself relax. I sat on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the trees, its golden light filtering through the branches. The laughter from inside carried faintly to where I sat, and the air was cool, almost too still. At that moment, it felt safe, like one of those memories you carry with you for years. The kind you never expect to sour, But looking back, that quiet Easter evening was only the surface. Something else was there, waiting beneath it. Something I could never have prepared for. That first night in the cabin was calm. Too calm, maybe. After dinner, most of the family went to bed early, and the place settled into a heavy silence. My girlfriend fell asleep beside me almost instantly, but I lay awake, staring at the wooden beams of the ceiling, listening to the faint crackle of the stove downstairs. That's when I heard it, a faint tapping. At first, I thought it was just a tree branch brushing against the window, but when I sat up, I realized the sound wasn't coming from outside. It was from the hallway. 3 soft taps, then silence. I held my breath, waiting for it again. Nothing. Finally, I convinced myself it was just the cabin shifting with the night air, and I tried to sleep. The next morning, though, something unsettled me. On the kitchen table, among the neat rows of decorated eggs, sat one that no one seemed to have placed there. Unlike the pastel colors of the others, this one was plain white, but streaked with something that looked like ash or soot. I asked about it, but her family brushed it off. Maybe one of the kids made it. I let it go, but I couldn't shake the feeling it hadn't been there the night before. Later, while helping to carry wood in from the shed, I noticed the same egg again, this time on the porch railing. I hadn't brought it there, and neither had anyone else. That night, the tapping returned. Louder, closer, almost like knuckles rapping against wood. I got up quietly, careful not to wake anyone, and stepped into the hallway. The air was colder there, as if the warmth from the stove couldn't reach it. At the far end of the hall, just past the bathroom door, something small rested on the floor. I bent down slowly, my skin prickling as I realized what it was. Another egg, white, streaked with gray. I stared at it, my pulse hammering, when a sound broke the silence. Long, slow breathing, just beyond the bathroom door. I froze in that hallway, staring at the egg lying on the wooden floor. My throat went dry. The bathroom door was cracked open just an inch, and from inside came that sound, slow, ragged breathing. I whispered, "Hello." My voice was barely audible, but even that felt too loud. The breathing stopped instantly. The silence that followed was worse than the sound itself. It pressed in on me, thick and suffocating. I wanted to run back into the bedroom, crawl under the blankets, and pretend I hadn't heard anything, but my body wouldn't move. Then the door creaked, just slightly, as if something inside had shifted. My chest tightened. My thoughts turned frantic. Do I wake everyone? Do I open the door? What if it's just the wind? But the egg wasn't the wind. Suddenly, a sharp bang rattled the wood, like a fist slamming against the bathroom wall. I stumbled backward, heart racing. The sound was so violent, so deliberate, there was no mistaking it. Someone was in there. I panicked. I darted back to the bedroom, shaking my girlfriend awake. She groggily asked what was wrong, but I was already locking the door, dragging a chair in front of it like that would help. She looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Maybe I had. Then we heard it together. Heavy footsteps moving down the hall, slow and steady. They stopped right outside our door. The handle turned. Once, twice, rattling against the lock. I held my breath, clutching the edge of the chair, praying it would hold. I thought maybe it was over. But when I looked down, right at the crack beneath the door, I saw it. An egg, rolled gently across the floor until it touched my shoe. I stared at the egg by my shoe, my whole body trembling. It was streaked with gray again, only this time, a thin crack ran through it. Something dark oozed out, thick and sticky, spreading slowly across the wood. Before I could move, the doorknob rattled violently. Harder, harder. The chair scraped forward with each jolt, until it was barely holding. My girlfriend screamed, clutching my arm, begging me not to open it. Then silence. A whisper slid through the doorframe, low, guttural, and wrong. It wasn't in English. It wasn't even words, just a sound that made my skin crawl, like glass grinding against metal. The egg split open at my feet. Inside wasn't yolk. It was black, writhing, like something alive. The smell hit me. Rotten sulfur, burning chemicals, all at once. My eyes watered, and I gagged. The door gave way. It didn't open. It buckled, like something pushed through it, without caring about the lock or the wood. And then it was there. Tall, bent, limbs far too long, dragging against the floor as it stepped into the room. Its face, if you could call it that, was smooth and pale, except for a wide, vertical crack running through the center, pulsing faintly with light. It looked at me without eyes. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand and hurled it, but it shattered uselessly. The thing just stood there, head cocked, like it was amused. And then, slowly, it crouched down. Its hand reached for me, long, skeletal fingers curling, holding another egg. I don't remember how we got out of that room. My memory of the next moments is a blur of screaming, splintering wood, and the sickening stench of sulfur choking the air. Somehow, we ended up outside, barefoot, clutching each other in the freezing night, staring at the cabin like it had swallowed something whole. But what I do remember is this. The thing never chased us. It didn't have to. From the window of the bedroom, I saw it standing there, framed in the pale moonlight, its hand pressed against the glass, the faint glow from the crack in its face burning like a second moon, and resting on the sill in front of it, another egg, perfectly whole, perfectly waiting. The family found us at dawn, shivering in the yard, unable to explain why we refused to go back inside. When they finally entered, the cabin was exactly as we'd left it. The bedroom door was fine. No black sludge on the floor. No broken lamp. Nothing, except the eggs. Every single one of them had changed. No more pastel pinks, no cheerful blues. Just white, white streaked with ash. I've tried not to think about it since then, but Easter always brings it back. Whenever I see baskets in stores, or kids with dye-stained hands, I remember that figure in the window. I remember its hand pressing against the glass, and I can't help but feel that it marked us, that those eggs weren't decorations, they were offerings, and one day it'll come back to collect. When I was a kid, Easter always meant going to my grandmother's house. She lived in a quiet suburb, the kind of neighborhood where all the houses looked the same, freshly cut lawns, pastel decorations hanging in the windows, and children running around with baskets too big for their hands. It was safe, familiar, almost boring in its normalcy. That particular year, I was 16, and though I felt too old for egg hunts, my grandma insisted I still come. Tradition is tradition, she said with a smile. And truthfully, I didn't mind. She always cooked a big dinner, and the house smelled like honey-glazed ham and cinnamon rolls the moment we stepped inside. Her house was small but cozy. Cross-stitch decorations lined the walls, and porcelain bunnies sat on every shelf. The sun filtered through lace curtains, giving everything a soft, golden glow. My younger cousins ran through the hallways laughing, their baskets rattling with candy. I remember sitting on the couch, half watching a rerun on the TV, when I thought to myself how perfect everything felt. The laughter, the smells, the warmth. Nothing about that day seemed unusual. But sometimes, the strangest things don't happen in dark woods or isolated cabins. Sometimes they happen in the most ordinary places, in houses you think you know by heart. And on that Easter Sunday, in my grandmother's home, I learned that even the safest places can hide something unexplainable, something you never forget. The afternoon slipped by in a blur of food, laughter, and the kind of small talk that always filled family gatherings. My cousins were still running in and out of the house, searching for eggs my grandmother had hidden in her yard. I stayed inside, stretched out on the couch, half asleep from eating too much ham and mashed potatoes. That's when I noticed something strange. On the coffee table, beside the basket of bright, pastel eggs, there was one I hadn't seen before. It wasn't colorful like the others. It was dull, grayish-white, with faint cracks running along the shell. At first, I thought maybe one of my cousins had accidentally dropped it, but when I picked it up, it felt cold, ice cold, almost like it had just come from a refrigerator. I called into the kitchen, asking if anyone had set it down, but no one answered. My grandmother was busy rinsing dishes, and my mom just shrugged, saying maybe I was imagining things. A little later, I saw it again. Not on the table this time, but on the stairs, just sitting there, waiting. I picked it up again, unsettled, and carried it to the trash can in the kitchen. I tossed it in, trying to brush off the uneasy feeling creeping through me. But when I went back to the living room, the egg was back on the table. My stomach dropped. I asked my cousins if they were playing a joke, but they all swore they hadn't touched it. Some of them hadn't even been inside for the last half hour. That's when the house felt different. The cheerful clatter of family chatter seemed distant, muffled somehow. Even the sunlight streaming through the curtains looked dimmer, as though a cloud had rolled in that no one else could see. Then, from upstairs, I heard it. A slow, deliberate sound, like something rolling across the wooden floorboards. An egg. I stood at the bottom of the staircase, staring up into the dim hallway. The rolling sound had stopped, but the silence that followed felt heavy, like the house itself was holding its breath. I climbed halfway up the stairs, my hand gripping the banister so tightly my knuckles ached. And there it was, another egg. It rested at the top step, perfectly still, but I could swear I had just heard it moving. This one was darker than before, streaked with faint black lines that seemed to twist across the shell. "Guys," I called out, my voice shaky. No answer. The laughter from outside had stopped too. I didn't even hear birds anymore, just the faint ticking of my grandma's old clock in the hallway. I backed down the stairs, my pulse quickening. I needed to tell someone, but when I stepped into the kitchen, it was empty. The sink still ran, but the dishes my grandma had been rinsing were piled in the same place. My mom's coffee cup was still steaming on the counter. They were gone. All of them. Panic surged in my chest. I darted from room to room, calling out names, opening closets, even flinging open the back door. Nothing. The house was silent, lifeless, as if everyone had simply vanished. And then knock. 3 sharp knocks from upstairs. I froze, heart hammering, when something began descending the staircase. Not quickly, not rushed, just slow, steady thuds against the wooden steps. And with each step, more eggs rolled down ahead of it, one by one, bouncing lightly until they reached the bottom. I stood there, paralyzed, as the last one cracked open at my feet. Inside wasn't yolk. It was moving. The cracked egg at my feet writhed, the shell splitting wider until something black and wet spilled out, twitching like it was alive. The stench hit me, sulfur mixed with rot, thick enough to burn my throat. Then I looked up. Something was coming down the stairs. Not a person, not anything I'd ever seen before. Its body was long, too long, draped in shadows like it was made of the house itself. Its head brushed the ceiling as it moved, and in the dim light from the hallway, I saw dozens of cracks running across its pale skin, like eggshell fractures glowing faintly from the inside. Every step it took made the wood groan, and with each step, another egg rolled forward, spilling open on the floor, leaking black sludge that spread across the carpet like veins. I stumbled backward into the living room, but it was already there. Not behind me, in front of me. It had crossed the space in seconds, impossible and silent. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Its face leaned close, cracks spreading wider until I saw something moving beneath the surface, something clawing, pressing, as though it wanted out. Its hand reached forward, impossibly long fingers curling. In its palm was an egg, larger than the rest, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. It pressed the egg against my chest, and before I could shove it away, I felt it sink, right through me, like it was planting something inside. I must have blacked out. When I opened my eyes, the house was filled with noise again, voices, laughter, the clatter of dishes. My mom was in the kitchen, my cousins running through the hall, my grandma humming softly as though nothing had happened. For a moment, I thought I dreamed it. Maybe I dozed off on the couch, my imagination running wild. But when I stood, my shirt clung to me, damp with something cold. I pulled the fabric away and froze. A faint, dark stain spread across my chest, right where the thing had pressed the egg. No one else noticed. No one asked why I looked pale or why my hands wouldn't stop shaking. They just carried on with Easter like everything was normal. I tried to convince myself it was a hallucination, stress, a nap gone wrong. But then, later that evening, when everyone gathered to say grace, I glanced at the centerpiece on my grandma's dining table. The eggs, every single one of them had changed. No more bright dyes or cheerful patterns, just pale shells, streaked with cracks, just like the ones I'd seen upstairs. I pushed back from the table, heart pounding, but no one else reacted. They didn't even seem to notice. My family laughed, prayed, and passed food like nothing was wrong. And that's when it hit me. Maybe it wasn't that they didn't see it. Maybe they already belonged to it. And now so did I.